Well, sadly, I don't think it's an all that rare event in U.S. political history. I mean, even if we just go back to the 1980s, we saw this with John Hinckley and Ronald Reagan. We saw this with Robert Kennedy in 1968. And even in Milwaukee, we saw this in 1912 with former President Theodore Roosevelt running on his Bull Moose ticket, was shot while campaigning in our fair city. So it has been all too common in U.S. history to see this kind of violence, unfortunately. Tragic and shocking, but
Indeed,
nonetheless
it's been called,
not rare.
yeah. Indeed, it's been called a horrific act of political violence. And we have also heard from President Joe Biden calling for unity in this primetime Oval Office address. He's also set to speak with NBC's Lester Holt shortly. Of course, when you look at the political implications here, it might take some of the focus away from the questions that have been circling about his candidacy. But do you think it adds to the political challenge for the Democrats? I want your sense of what this ultimately means for former President Trump's campaign moving forward. What does it mean for the Republicans, and what does it mean for the Democrats?
Well, I think it certainly gives a boost to the Trump campaign. Now, even though he was ahead in terms of his polling numbers, there was always the concern that he would make some slip of the tongue, as he commonly does, and that this could perhaps potentially derail him, just as with Joe Biden. Both of them are not speaking as clearly and forcefully and articulately as perhaps we come to expect with some of our past presidents. But I think he becomes a sympathetic figure, and this is something that is uncharacteristic for Donald Trump. So I think it very much benefits him politically, as he becomes this figure who is seen as actually strong, not just perceived to be strong, not just kind of a fake strong, but an actual strength. I mean, he understands television, he understands imagery, and not to trivialize at all what is a very serious event, but he seemed to react in a way which understood that in some way this would make for really good television and images. So he, on just a pure, crass political level, he handled it absolutely perfectly. With President Biden, we saw his remarks last night, and he, I think, also handled it well. I think he did not come across as trying to take advantage of the situation in any way that one could potentially capitalize on it. And we're seeing a somewhat bipartisan expression of the need to tone down our political rhetoric, although I don't think that's so easy to achieve after years and years, if not decades, of ramping up tensions and using the most volatile rhetoric and in demonizing our political opponents, whoever those persons may be.